All right, awesome. So 10 years of civic tech as seen through the archives. Let me lay out some objectives here. I came with a mission. What I want to do here is I want to let you know, first of all, we have an archive. It exists. I'm going to share how it exists and why it exists. And I'm going to show you some cool capabilities and insights that come with it, with the goal that so that hopefully you come away convinced that you should use it and contribute to it going forward. That's what I want to get out of this, okay? So as a starting point, to say that we didn't have an archive prior to this year is unfair. We did have a bunch of archiving documents around. The issue was that they were all kind of distributed in a way that made it very difficult and inaccessible to kind of get to you as individuals. So as an approach, it's easier to succeed when we have a transparent project that anyone can help with that doesn't cost anything to maintain. And that was the overall kind of design criteria that we wanted to take going forward. So how it works is it's a bunch of structured documents that are then backed up on a version-controlled storage. Ta-da! The shape of it, if you want to take a look at tonight's presentation, we're looking at the entry for tonight's event, which is 523. And in it, it is following a markdown file with YAML front matter, which is just a fancy way of saying a bunch of structured text. So Hacknight is one thing, but we also have different pieces of what we want to include in that archive. So our events are present, but so are our venues, and so are our individuals who are participating and speaking. And the assembly of all of these different documents come together to form our archive. So very fun. This is going to be my first quote, and you'll see this ongoing as we go through, is callbacks to previous Hacknights. So the first callback I want to make is to Hacknight 25 with James McKinney from Open North API, featured in 2016, in which he mentioned you need to solve a lot of really boring problems so that people can come to Hacknights to do something useful and productive. And a lot of the fun in getting this prepared was extracting all that information to make it really, really plain and simple. So now we have this wonderful archive, great, structured documents, version controlled, done. Thank you for coming to my tech talk. You think then you might want to do something with it. And with all of the talent in the room, all of the technology, I'm sure you can do whatever you want. You can make an MCP server, you can make a web applet, you can make all sorts of automations. For our sake, to make it easier for non-technical people to access it, the approach was to make a website. Because hitherto we had a WordPress that wasn't getting updated as much as it could be. And it made it really turnkey if we just create an archive record that it automatically would go online so that anybody could see it. How does that work? Well, it's the magic of the cloud compute static site servers or static site generators, which is really turnkey. If you are technical, I'm sure you might have heard of this. If you're not, know that this is the magic that makes a lot of things possible, and it's very easy to learn. Effectively, if you can make these simple documents that I showed you before, you can make a site like this. And when you make an edit, magically a server will turn on, and in 2 to 4 minutes, it will wake up, build you a new site, and publish it. And then as an output, you'll get website pages that are easier to access and read. So great. You can check it out. It's at GitHub and civictech.ca. But why? Yeah, we have a website. That's really cool. But why? What's the utility here? Well, the reality is that Civic Tech, and second quote from 379, Curtis McCord, who wrote a PhD on Civic Tech. Well, Civic Tech, it's kind of a confusing place. And I'm sure many of you here might know that, unless you're new, in which case, welcome. Civic Tech isn't a niche group. It supports engagement with all sorts of civic tech issues or civic issues. It supports people pursuing whatever they think is relevant to their city or to their democracy, and is in conversation with all sorts of other groups as well. And has been doing so for 10 years. That's a lot of Tuesdays. It's a lot of stuff to try and communicate. And although you might be able to find a handful of people who know pieces of it, nobody knows all of it. More Tuesdays than any one person can attend, and more stuff than any one person can relay. We're talking like 500 presenters, 70 venues, 93 hours of video, a bunch of breakouts, and a heck of a lot of Slack messages. So in the theory of if we want this practice of civic tech to be more accessible and tenable and resilient, I want to call back to Book Club, who I believe are meeting today.
Book club.
And Hack Night 467, in which case it was talking about Donella Meadows' thinking in systems, which brought up points to intervene in a system if you want to leverage and make change. And smack in the middle is this idea of if you can change the structure of information flows of who does and does not have access to information, you can have immense impact on a system and how it operates. So how things might go today is somebody might come in and they'll be like, has anything been done about noise? Which the response may just be, I just got here. That is not what we want to do. And if we want to promote these practices where people are better engaged with the issues, there's this great tool called the Cone of Possibilities that I want to refer to, that we exist now at this present moment and time heads forward. And there's this cone of possibility of all the things that could occur. And then within that, there's the plausible futures of what might occur and the probable futures of what likely will occur. And our influence in how people are able to traverse the space gets them towards what we want them to do. So if we want people to plug in and make better use of the existing projects, the Hack Nights, whatnot, if we can provide them access to things like noise, we get them to having better impact. So the change with the archive, we get them to check the archive. And then what we've done, we've implemented is tags for various issues, topics, and aspects of what's going on in the archive. So you can see, for example, for noise, we have some 7 Hack Night instances and 1 project that is currently ongoing just on the subject of noise. Now, in this presentation, I'm not going to be able to go over comprehensively all of the different topics and issues. There are many of them. I highly encourage you that this thing exists and is available to you, both in raw data format and as a website for you to be able to consume. So if you haven't already, and it would be really insightful for me if you could raise your hand. Have you been to the civictech.ca website? Excellent. Have you used any of the tag features? Have you found anything new? No, maybe not so much. Yay, today. Excellent. Well, there's a lot there. There's 10 years of stuff there for you to pick up. And not that you don't have to use it. You can talk to people in the room. But it's kind of a dice roll because each of us, although some of us have been here at the start, some of us have been here in the middle, nobody has been here end to end for the whole entire thing. Furthermore, Hack Nights projects are great. Some people come in learning objectives, and I love to see this when I meet new people coming in. I want to flag one of our Hack Nights, Hack Night 89 with Karen Louise Smith, who did an explanation of Armstrong's ladder of participation, which is the most viewed video on our YouTube. And this is not one that's talking about a project, it's really talking about techniques. So as part of our archive, not only do we have these like historical resources, we also have actual resources like reference to open data, like reference to different books, learnings, toolkits. So you will find on the website a resource tab. And in that, you will find things like the Citizens Handbook, which you can further learn things that are adjacent to our community, like the practices of the Citizens Handbook with Arnstein's ladder of citizen participation. So the idea with this, with us getting the access to information, not only are we showcasing what is in our history, but also tools that are useful for the people who want to come and do more. Cool, great, nice. Archive. What else? I promised cool capabilities, neat insights. So I'm going to deliver. I'm going to start off with venues. So what having an archive allows you to do is it allows you to get some metrics. Does anybody want to guess what the top 3 venues that we've been to, total instances, sum of instances of visits? And this is open participation. So check it out. We got City Hall. U of T, do you specific building at U of T? It's SU is a good guess.
My hall?
My hall? Yeah, okay. Any other guesses? Oh my gosh, you got them all. So, Baba, show us who's in the room. So Toronto City Hall 19 times, ODS 22 times, and my hall a whopping 60 times. I'm going to deviate from our little presentation and show you a couple of tables that have been put together. I got to share again. All right, you can see my screen. This is a annual unique venues over the history of the 10 years. And looking at this was really interesting for me because I'm actually, strangely, I showed up in 2016, but then I went away and I came back in 2024. So I missed this whole entire history in the middle, and that was a big kind of driver for me wanting to pursue the archive, is I wanted to realize what had happened. For me, it was really interesting to see the change in the kind of the temperature and the way that the event happened, knowing that back in the day in 2016, it was a lot of spaces like these. And when I showed up in 2024, it was a lot of spaces like my hall. So seeing that there was, 15 or so different unique events venues that we would go to on an annual basis leading up to 2020, and then something happened in 2020. And it seems to be we're climbing back to that space ever since. Further, it was, whoops, not that one, too soon. Possible to categorize each of the venues and look at them through different splits. So we have here academic venues versus hospitality venues, which, we've been to a bar a couple times. Industry venues, which would be spaces like these, nonprofit venues, online, parks. We did that a couple times. And public institutions, which are always very, a pleasure to be part of. Really interesting insight for me. Of course, we all know why and how this happened. As somebody who came from running a community beforehand, I think that it is amazing the resilience that this community has in being able to stay with it and do 50 online hack nights and not miss a beat, not miss a Tuesday, even though the world is completely changed. So just very impressed and grateful for the tenacity that the community has for that. Other really interesting things here is to recognize the support of industry and nonprofit at the start in the first few years, and how that might have shaped and informed the way that the community was coalesced. I remember back in the day, there was pizza. And I think in part that was the support of the industry. I think in part as well, it was representative of the space and kind of the tenor. I personally am very curious from a nonprofit perspective why nonprofit isn't as prevalent as it used to be. But just as an overall view, not having too much of the specific context, it's really novel to see the changes in how we touch various parts of the city over time and the partners who show up for us. Big call out to, of course, the city and the institutions and all of the industry partners who've shown up to us for us over the years. Great. Just like venues, I'm not going to go through all the categories, but something that is unique to having this archive in place is our ability to tag all of the content. So like I did with the venues, if you want to call it out, these are probably more of an open guess. So I would love to actually record what your guesses are. But if you were to imagine what are the prevalent topics that come up at Civic Tech? Transportation. Sorry? Open data, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voting.
Voting, okay, yeah.
Voting/democracy.
Democracy is a big one. It's a little bit harder, and I think that's a kind of a testament towards the variety that our community holds in it, all of the different civic issues and ideas that emerge over time. I'm going to go ahead and show you. At the bottom if you know, you know, it's going to be maps.
Yeah.
Lots of love for maps. The second one is artificial intelligence. This was a little shocker for me. I didn't expect this as much, but it makes sense over time. It's really emerged. And then tied for second is both civic tech enablement, which is what was labeled anything similar to this, where it's case studies or showcases where people are trying to pass on their skills to other people, and open data. And then at the very top, democracy. And I'm going to jump over to the too soon moment, which was over here. This is us looking at a stacked chart of the top 20 tags, topics over time. So they're stacked in order of prevalence. At the very bottom here, we have democracy, and you will see a big uptick in the past year. Now, this could be labeling bias. It could just be me being lazy and tagging everything with democracy. Everything kind of seems like democracy. It's also democracy. It could be our projects. But it was really interesting to just see how some of these themes emerge over time, as well as open data, civic tech enablement, artificial intelligence, maps, public engagement, and so forth and so on. My hope would be that with having all of these topics, that if you have specific interests or if you're looking to drive impact on specific angles, that we can help surface what those issues are or what those points are. And then if they're not already in the archive, we can use that as guidance towards where do we want to go in the future? What conversations do we want to have? Who do we want to bring in to the table? So I'll have this available after if anybody wants to take a deeper look. But for the most part here, it's interesting to see where certain years kind of index higher in terms of a share of certain topics. Like you can see in 2024, we did a lot more on climate or other ones that are maybe less represented. And I do want to do a shout out. It just made the cut over here, this topic of play. So after you get past all of the interesting civic issues, you get to kind of the delightful ones like play. Call it the Danforth Dad. Where are we? Oh, yes. What else can we do? The truth is, this is available to you. So if you're familiar with Markdown, if you're familiar with YAML front matter, then you might be familiar with tools like Obsidian. If you're not, they're fun. You can waste a lot of time in them. And I'm showing this purely because it's so a force diagram graph of our 10 years as seen in this vision. This contains everything that is in the archive. And I encourage you, if you are curious, you can spin this up yourself and take a look and traverse it however you want. It does have really interesting insights when you kind of zoom in and you're like, oh, well, of course, this big blob here is my hall. Or you can see this is all the civic tech organizers who have touched and been part of it, or the City of Toronto and the variety of both speakers and venues that they've supported us with. I'll click in here to my hall and we'll go over to U of T because I don't think that there's anybody from U of T here. And we'll do a bit of a local graph. And we can adjust and see some of the depth and say, okay, well, it's not just my hall, but as was mentioned, it's also the UTSU and Stanford and the School of Policy and Engagement or School of Cities, all that are engaged and part of our wider reach as a community. If you are curious about this, can I actually get a show of hands? Is this new to anybody, or has anybody in the room has done this before? Done this? Okay, has anybody done this before? Yeah, some. And then the rest of you, I'm going to assume it's new to you. So if I can get your hands up for anybody who's done this before. All right, everybody look around. Afterwards, if you want to learn more about it, you can go talk to these people. Let's go over here. Great. What else? What else? I'm closing in on time here, or for what I want to cover. With putting together the archive, it was novel for some of these discoveries, but it was strange and intimate to be so immersed in the data. Because as you're going through it, you would do things like I would do things like have an image and not know which Hacknight it connected to or which venue it connected to. So immediately I was like, oh no, what do I do? And I would end up scanning through, looking at a lot of footage, looking at a lot of photos, being like, how do these things connect? And with that, both in the documents and the images, some things emerged where you would start to see faces that you recognize. Little gremlins hiding in the corner who would be like, oh, that person seems to really be prevalent. You would see people who show up very early in the data, and you're like, wow, I didn't know. And it would be really strange because they would just kind of be hiding in the background. Sometimes they would run in and fix something on the camera, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, can't believe this. But over the time, you just see people who are kind of not in the limelight, but showing up week over week, year over year, to contribute and put it on, that are the lifeblood of what makes this community possible. So although I think by design and per their own decisions, so not represented outright in the archive, do know that they are there and that they are appreciated and loved and so special as part of the city. There are other things in the archive that are not represented in the markdown. There are, as mentioned on the previous slide, a bunch of different sources. Not everything got structured in the way that you can just go and pick it up from the repo. There are things like this wonderful document that is a theory of change from 2017. And though it's hard to trace back who the exact authors are, what I love about the idea of archiving and capturing all these history is that each of these different records and documents are imbued with the visions and the feelings and the hopes and the fears of the time. So there's some wonderful aspirations here of doing things like hack nights or sorry, we do hack nights, hackathons, or advising government panels, etc. But I want to close in on the goals here of a callback to 2017, looking now how many years? I'm not great with math. 8 years on, this idea of setting out to support Torontonians in making, in becoming better equipped to make change in the city and create conditions in which civic tech can thrive in Toronto and beyond. And I really hope that we feel like we've accomplished that. I know for myself, I feel like we've done great things. And I hope in the next 10, 20, 50 years that it continues to do so. I also want to call out that there's things that I personally didn't even imagine existed until I found them in the archive. So one of the things that I learned about when I was cruising through was Hacknight 146 with Joy Kogawa, who was doing a callback to the Toronto Dollar Project. This was in 2018. And at that point in time, I learned that there was once upon a time a project to make a local currency that would be kept in community, that 10% would go to support community groups. And to know that this kind of civic innovation, this project is possible, inspired me and inspires me to wonder what else we could do. So I highly encourage everybody, for both the community contributors who are building projects and the people who are just showing up new, to see what you can do with the archive. If you're working on something, maybe we can make sure that it's represented. If you're new here, maybe you'll discover something cool. So my takeaway here, and I'm going to close up, is first of all, if you've been here for a while, I really ask you to contribute to the archive. It's great, don't get me wrong, we did a lot of work to put stuff in place, but there's still more to be desired. We have a project section, which has a bunch of the headings. I said 45 breakout projects, but doesn't have a lot of the meat of what actually happened. So if you have a favorite past historical project that you want to make sure is captured for the future, please do take some time to try to gather your thoughts on it, and you can put in a PR or you can get in touch with the archivists in 2026 and help update that record. If you're new here, I really would like you to check it out. Like, if you have an interest, if you want to do something, take a look, check out the tags, and consider joining or starting a project. All of our current projects should be listed on the projects list, which means that if you're looking for something to do, it's really easy to say like, oh, wow, maybe bike space is there for you. And then if you're from the future, because I know that this is being recorded, unfortunately, I really tried to resist talking because I didn't want to be in part of the archive myself. But if you are from the future, you're probably listening to this, and I want to put this out to you to try and maintain this thing for the future, for posterity, and for everybody who came beforehand. And that's it. That's all I got for you. Check it out. You can go to our GitHub, civictech.to, or civictech.ca, or you'll find the GitHub in the footer, github/civictechto/archive. Thank you.
Question in the room, drop a Q online if you have questions. Use your hand in the room.
I got the. Okay. Actually, before, can we just give Jordy another hand? There's a lot of passion in this. Thank you from all of us. I remember seeing this on the early days where laptop, I think, say what. Just curious what you would tell your, I guess, self, not 1-year-old self, but yourself a year ago. What would you have told yourself now that a year later and this amazing thing has sprung up? Love to get some insights. Pardon?
Don't do a conference.
Seriously, any thoughts, or I'll ask for advice as well?
That would be my number one thing. Don't do a conference. The other thing I would do, I don't know. I think at the time, I don't think I was aware of all the things that would change. So when I started building the archive, I guess like MCP servers weren't as prevalent. The tools with AI weren't as prevalent. And to see kind of the world change in real time and see how these kind of toolings, like I sweated a lot. Before we even started, there was a lot of attention to the architecture because it's a discussion of like, well, we could do a little SQLite instance or all sorts of things, but to arrive at these like simple documents was a choice. And now that we have them in place, they're really interoperable for anything that we want to do in the future. If we want to move it around, if we want to plug it in with AI, if we want to do anything, it's like ready, it's there. But I don't know. Really, don't do a conference.
Hey, Jordy, that was awesome. It sounds like you went through a lot of footage and images and stuff. There must have been some stuff that you went through that did not make the cut in this presentation that like is running laps in your head, or you can't, like something that's odd or interesting or noteworthy that couldn't quite fit in this presentation. Is there anything like a top 5 or anything on the top of your mind that you like would want to tell someone about that couldn't fit in here?
I mean, I really would like to get out all of the project-specific information. We have kind of the starting of the project records in the archive, but it's not complete enough to kind of like run analysis on. So if there was anything that I would really like to surface, or maybe, 5 years time, 10 years time, whoever is the archivist, they can do this, is to do a breakdown of the history of all the projects that the community has contributed on, and kind of lift up the things that we as people in the public actually put our attention to. Because that's kind of the magic that I think is not being told in the story right now. There's so much work that's gone into the homelessness, into various other things that I can't articulate right now because I can't get them out to you. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
This is so cool. I'm really excited for this. And also for the first people, and it's probably already happened, who step up to help with it. Because I know that's a really important part, and I know you've been thinking about that a lot. Yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on, because it's like, I think whenever I've tried something like this, of which I've never made it nearly as far, it's like I struggle with the idea of like breakouts, like people going to the front of the room being the unit of when anything happens, and projects being a bit higher bar. And so I'm curious how, like, yeah, did did anyone who go like, yeah, I'm curious where how the lines work, or if you think there's like possibility for like some other, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know my full question, but I'm just curious where you break those down, and like, or like whether you've felt torn about like, oh, is this one-off thing a project? Like, what is this? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you. And for context, that question came from Pat Kahn, who is responsible for many of the originating documents that help constitute the archive. I think for me, there was an active decision to like focus at that project level because the granularity of the data of the breakouts was too granular. And I don't know if everything was caught that should have been caught or didn't get caught. I know personally I've spun up instances of Slack channels that died within a week. So it's hard to know what the threshold of like what is a project versus not a project. What I think the archive wants to do is to put the project organizers in the driving seat and encourage the people that run the projects themselves to self-publish into the archive. For me, in my mindset of like, how does this work? That approach of self-advocacy, I think, will pay dividends because then it becomes the community's own ownership. So if you have a project, you publish it, you're responsible for it, and it drives benefit for you. If we use it at Civic Tech 101, then you get like people who are coming into the community know how to find your project and can flow through from that perspective. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
One last time for Jordan Armstrong. Yeah.
I also want to plug, so this is kind of wrapping up 2 initiatives. One was getting the archive in place. The other one is we are doing an alpha launch for our Civic Tech Toolkit. So we have 10 editions to give out. If you are interested, you want to take a look, we have put together these 3 issues. One is before you start, second is getting started, and third is building and beyond. And the idea is that it helps people who want to start new projects understand how to orient themselves and how to go through steps of meeting with other people and getting organized to be able to build their projects. We're looking for 10-ish people to volunteer to take them home over the holidays, mark them up, and come back with feedback. So if you're passionate and interested, we have 10 copies to give out. Come check us out over at that table. And big call out to my partner in crime on this, who did a lot of work in getting it situated.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Cool. If you have more questions for Jordy, ask somebody else. There's an archive, so I hear, and there's other people who are around. So give them a break, and if you want to run a conference, you fucking do it.